was not born with the hunger to be free. I was born free. Free in every way that I could know. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut. Free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village. Free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me. I began to hunger for it. Mandela worked to end the practice of apartheid by standing up to racial segregation and oppression, becoming an anti-apartheid activist and a political leader that changed the world's view on racial equality. The dreamer who never gave up, the Nelson Mandela story. South Africa in the early 1900s was not just a country of black Africans ruled by whites. It was a country in which black Africans were forced to face their diminished status every day of their lives from morning till night. After being implemented as the official policy of the National Party in 1948, apartheid controlled where someone was born, lived, went to school, worked, hospitalized, and buried when they died.
Policy is one which is called by the Afrikaans word apartheid.
Forced to live a life dictated by the white man, a black African's mind, body, and spirit were caged. Only white South Africans could vote. Black Africans had no right to citizenship and were regarded as aliens in South Africa. Mandela came of age during the time of apartheid. He was born as Rolihlahla Mandela in the rural village of Mvezo. He spent his days playing with the other boys and listening to his father's and elders' stories of war and glory. His devout Christian mother enrolled him in a Methodist school where he was given the name Nelson. This was his first encounter with the white world. Tragedy struck Mandela at the fragile age of 9 when he lost his father. The acting king of the tribe became his guardian. Living among the royal family exposed Mandela to powerful examples of black leadership that remained a source of influence throughout his life. Mandela attended the University College of Fort Hare and later studied law at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. In Johannesburg in 1941, Mandela's eyes were opened to the real South Africa. It was a world of injustice driven by the separation of the races, a world he had never faced before. This led Mandela to immerse himself in the world of politics. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress, or ANC, which was an anti-colonist political party. Mandela's commitment to politics in the ANC grew stronger after apartheid was implemented as the national policy in 1948.
That the task of the ANC was to unite the African people and out of them build a nation.
In 1952, Mandela, along with the ANC, fought back, launching the defiance campaigns against the government. The government, in turn, cracked down on their efforts, banning him from the ANC. After the 1960 Shapersville massacre, where police killed 69 and wounded 180 unarmed protesters, Mandela became convinced that apartheid could not be defeated without armed resistance and became more militant.
Many people feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
In 1961, Mandela formed Umkhonto weSizwe, also known as MK, a militant branch of the ANC that committed targeted acts of sabotage against the government and its military. The guerrilla tactics of MK were effective, but in August of 1962, Mandela was captured. Mandela was charged and convicted of conspiracy. Facing the death penalty, Mandela gave an inspirational speech that sealed his iconic status around the world.
I cherished the idea of a democratic and free society. If my Lord, if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
This immense attention worked in Mandela's favor, and he was sentenced to life in prison rather than death. Mandela spent the first 18 of his 27 tragic years in jail at the brutal Robben Island. He described it as a prison within a prison, a harsh regime where racism ruled. In 1964, when he was 45 years old, he became prisoner number 466. All prisoners were put through excruciating physical labor, working in an open lime quarry breaking rocks. The dazzling reflection of the white stone damaged Mandela's eyesight. As time went by, he became increasingly aware of the suffering that his absence has caused his family. He asked himself, is one justified in neglecting his family on the grounds of involvement in larger issues? Is the public welfare not something remote and secondary to that of one's family? These questions taunt him daily.
I've been deprived of a father.
During his imprisonment, he lost both his mother and his son and was refused permission to attend their funerals. As Mandela acknowledges his son's death left him shaken from top to bottom. Later on, he said, I was really devastated to lose a son, your eldest son, and I had no opportunity of paying my respects to his memory by attending the funeral. During his years behind bars, Mandela refused to be broken. Far from being diminished, Mandela's moral leadership continued to grow, but his militant approach changed and his approach towards fighting apartheid became non-violent. The call for his release became a rally and cry around the world for all those who opposed apartheid. The country was now in turmoil. The economy collapsed. South Africa had become a pariah nation to the rest of the world. With the election of F.W. de Klerk as president, things began to change. The government started dismantling the apartheid laws, and the ban on the ANC was lifted. Mandela and all the other prisoners would soon be released.
I am now in a position to announce that Mr. Nelson Mandela will be released.
This was the triumph that the South Africans were waiting for many years. The country had exploded in celebration. In Cape Town, more than 500,000 packed the central square to welcome and hear Mandela speak for the first time in nearly 3 decades.
I stand here before you, not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people.
After his release, Mandela was chosen to lead the African National Congress. Mandela knew that in order to create a unified, non-racial South Africa, it had to be done in a way that was totally devoid of bitterness. He had to be bigger than it all. It took Mandela and the government, led by de Klerk, 3 tough years of negotiation. His tremendous achievement of working together with de Klerk to end apartheid and to promote South Africa's freedom, where one man meant one vote and no man controlled another, was recognized globally. In 1993, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize together with President de Klerk. South Africa held its very first open election in 1994, and millions of black Africans cast their first ballot. The ANC, led by Mandela, won in a landslide. Mandela became the first black head of state in South Africa and the first to be elected in a fully representative democratic election.
And never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
During his presidency, Mandela focused on national reconciliation. He reassured South Africa's black population of freedom from the rule of the white minority and the white South African population that they would not be discriminated. As president, Mandela prioritized national programs that expanded access to social services, education, and housing. All global sanctions were lifted from South Africa. Globally, South Africa would be a symbol of post-apartheid, but for some black Africans in South Africa, life is steeped in the lasting legacy of apartheid. Apartheid has left the black majority poor and powerless. South Africa still has a long road to recovery economically from the effects of apartheid. After his presidency and until his death in 2013 at the age of 95, Mandela continued to give his support and generosity in countless ways through different organizations. Mandela is considered one of the greatest and inspiring leaders of the 20th century, along with Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Mandela still stands both as a father of his nation and as an international icon of leadership and humanity. Through his tragedies and triumphs, Nelson Mandela showed the world loud and clear that he was indeed the dreamer who never gave up. Nelson Mandela, Madiba, we salute you.